Welcome. This is Mari Robeson of Love Lulu Creative, a podcast that supports and celebrates artists and creative entrepreneurs while giving back to the community in a unique and meaningful way. This is episode number 4, and I am so excited to share with you today one of my very good friends, Christine Mason Miller. Christine is an author and an artist who has been guiding others towards a meaningful life for more than 20 years. And I've actually been around for those 20 years. Her experience with writing, publishing, licensing, and teaching have established her as an experienced, compassionate authority on how to bring dreams to life, particularly those related to writing and publishing a book. Her online course, The Conscious Booksmith, has supported hundreds of aspiring artists on their book creation journey, and I am one of those authors. I actually took that course, and it was so helpful, and it gave me all the information I needed to know on how to self-publish my own book, Charming and Pretty, The Art of Home. So I'm deeply grateful for the course, but obviously deeply grateful for the friendship with Christine. She is an author, she's an artist, an incredible artist, an illustrator of 4 books, and each one is really distinctive and it's unique in its topic and its scope and its design. And now she is out with her 5th book, which is a huge accomplishment to write and create 5 books. And this one, they just keep getting better and better. I love them all. But I was really fortunate because I got a sneak peek on this one and I was able to read it prior to it going to being published. And it's so good. It's so good. It's so visually beautiful. And I know you guys will enjoy it. We're going to talk about it today. And I know it's such a good time because it's right before the holidays. So it's a great gift if you like the idea of giving books for the holidays. I love to give books. So we're going to get into that in just a second. I also want to say, I hope that you guys are liking this podcast on YouTube. I really am enjoying this format because I can create graphics to go with the conversations that I'm having. It's still a podcast, but I like that we can have that added bonus of actually seeing the art or the designs with all these people that I'm talking with. It's a very visual thing, so it's nice to have that there. So if you do like it, if you wouldn't mind, letting me know and hitting a thumbs up or subscribing, commenting, all of those things really help get it out there and be found for other people so that they can enjoy all this really incredible and generous information that these artists and designers and authors are sharing with us all. So I hope you'll help me spread the word by doing that. That would be really wonderful, and I would deeply thank you for that. So here we go. You guys are in for a real treat. I'm so happy to share with you my dear friend, Christine Mason Miller. Hi, Christine. I'm so excited to share your story today and to talk about your new book and just welcome. I'm super happy to be here with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so much fun. We've known each other since the beginning.
A very long time.
Yes.
In fact, I actually want to start with how we met because I think it really embodies your whole, you walk the talk basically of being an inspiration, and you've definitely been my inspiration for many, many years. So I remember when, it was Serena was a baby, and I remember some people kept telling me that they kept seeing my greeting cards in Boxworks, which was this really cute little store in downtown San Luis Obispo. And I kept going, no, that's not my greeting card. I don't know what you're talking about. And I remember going down there and I saw these greeting cards and I thought, oh my gosh, that kind of does look like we do look similar, but I didn't think we looked that similar. And on the back of your card, it said, write me, here's my address. I was like, okay.
All right.
All right. And you replied and you were so generous. And all of these years, you've just shared so much with me that has really helped me when I think a lot of people were not apt to want to share information. And this was pre-internet, so you can search for things. And you were just so helpful with like all your sources. And you were doing Swirly, a big greeting card company at the time. And I was just this little baby startup trying to figure it out. And you were so helpful. And we just really became really good friends. And all along, all through the years, I tell you this before, but I always feel like you're 10 steps ahead of me and you're figuring out all this stuff, which is great because then I just ask you, how'd you do that? How'd you write a book, Christine? Oh, how'd you write 5 books, Christine?
Oh, well, I love our friendship and our creative collaboration and all the ways that we've woven in and out of each other's lives as friends and also as creatives. It's been, I mean, that's such a gift to have experienced this with you for so many years.
I know. It's really been really a blessing for me. And I went to your website and I opened up your landing page. So when the landing page has a quote from Mother Teresa that says, do small things with great love, you know you're entering into something really special. Getting a little teared up. and you are. I mean, you really embody that. And I'm not even going to go into the ways that you've helped me in the past recent years, because then I'll just really be a puddle of tears. So
don't get me started.
You have been an awesome friend to me, and I really, really appreciate it. And I mean, we could spend a long time just talking about all of the amazing things that you've done and your teaching, your licensing, your artwork. I mean, just your artwork, your body of artwork that you've created over the years is amazing. And now the writing. So are you feeling that you are more apt to call yourself a writer now, writer/artist? Like where are you feeling, or you're just like not going to identify with anything?
Well, it's interesting when, we moved to Milwaukee a year ago. So we're meeting new people all the time. And whenever someone asks me what I do, I say I'm a writer. And then they want to know what I write about. And I usually answer by saying I write about different aspects of creating a meaningful life. And if they want to know more about that, I will then explain that my work has always been about encouraging others to create a meaningful life, but it has looked like a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. And that has been expressed in a lot of different ways. It started with Swirly, commercial illustration and licensing. Then I started doing mixed media artwork for gallery shows. Then I started writing and teaching and workshops and retreats. And so it's always had that same thread running through everything. Mm-hmm. But my expressions of that have been different over the years. And I would say as a reflection of things that were going on in my personal life.
Mm. And from somebody who's watching you from outside, it is all very cohesive. Even though those are very different things that you were participating in, it always had your signature feeling to it. And actually, that's really interesting. I never really thought about it that way, but that's very interesting. Because did you ever feel like when you were doing all these different things that you might be confusing people of your brand or who you are?
Oh, totally. Completely. So, I mean, sometimes I think, geez, like, what have I done with my life? But I mean, I know that sounds weird. It's not a feeling of what have I done with my life, but that the thing I've had to get used to over the past, I'd say 12 years or so. You think I would have gotten used to this by now, but I'm not. When I started my career, it was with Swirly. And with Swirly, it was one big, huge vision and dream that I was pursuing. And I was very focused. And then like around 2005, 2006, like I said, because of things that had gone on and were going on in my personal life, I needed to adjust my goals to be a little bit smaller and shorter term. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so I think that's what it is that part of me all this time I've had to remind myself, right, I have done these things, and even though they've looked different from one another, they have all been about the same thing. Mm-hmm. And even though they haven't necessarily been under the same brand, the way they were with Swirly, they are still part of the same body of work, which is me.
Right. Yeah, so it wasn't confusing watching all of that. It was more of like just watching you grow and evolve and expand. And it was awesome.
Thank you.
It was awesome for me. Even like the books that you've done are really kind of reflect different times in your life, but they all still have that same message, that same thread going through it.
Right. Yeah, that's been the goal, to impart the same inspirations and encouragements, all those things, to, invite beauty into other people's lives and instill that sense of possibility.
I love this. Okay, so now we're going to talk about this book, because I feel so blessed, fortunate, honored that I got to read it before anybody. And I literally sat down to read it and didn't move. Like I was completely consumed. Like I said to you, it was delicious. And I just thought it was so visually beautiful with your artwork and your collage of photography, but the storytelling, I mean, it's so good. It seriously could be a movie. It really could. I know. Oh, another. You haven't dabbled in that one too much. Just
I haven't.
Planting the seed. But I want to let you say the name, because I don't want to mess it up when I say it. So tell us the name of the book.
It's called The Meandering River of Unfathomable Joy. And the subtitle is Finding God and Gratitude in India.
Beautifully said. It is. It's not what I expected. It was such a good read. So basically, well, give us the synopsis of it, and then I'll dive into like my little favorite parts of it.
The synopsis is, there's the synopsis I wrote for the back cover of the book, fine. But the way I explain it to people when I talk about it is that here I was in a situation, in a place, in a part of the world that can be very unsettling, is very beautiful, is so different from what I'm used to in my day-to-day life in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It pushes me so far out of my comfort zone. But that's what I love about it, because it provides these opportunities for me to live according to the values that I say I want to live by. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's easy to live according to my values when I'm sitting at home and I'm drinking a cup of tea and everything's happy and easy. Mm-hmm. But to be put in these situations that, like I said, are so far out of my comfort zone, that's where it really happens. And that's where I had a choice again and again and again. Okay, I could freak out right now, or I could resist what's happening, or I could resent what's happening, or I can sink even deeper into this moment. Like being on a flight from Varanasi to Delhi, I had this awful sinus infection. I felt like a drill was being poked through my eardrum. Yeah. I was so physically miserable, and yet I could not help but feel grateful. Literally. It sounds so rose-colored glasses, like no way could I really be feeling that, but I really was, because it's like, here I am having this experience and I'm on a plane, I'm safe, someone just handed me a bottle of water, we're going to land soon. Do you know what I mean? And
well, you were focusing on the little things that were making you feel grateful.
Right.
So I feel like I need to travel the world with you, because I, on the other hand, in that circumstance, would have been a little whining and freaking out. I mean, it really made me the way when I was reading it, it was like, wow, I would not have handled it that well. All the things that you were going through was just so, but that was what the beauty of the book is that you do take every experience and make it this really genuinely magical experience that feeds your soul, even though it could be to someone else just a horrific experience. Right. But you're finding the beauty in the things that were so challenging, which is just what was so amazing. So this was your second trip to India that you wrote about. When you went to India the first time, you had the idea to do the book, or did that come from the second trip?
I wanted to write a book after the first trip, and I walked around with that idea in my head for 4 years. And then went on the second trip, which was in a lot of ways very different from the first trip. Not
Sure.
better, not worse, just very different. And I felt like I came back with experiences that were even richer and had given me even more of those opportunities to really dig deep into my gratitude and sense of presence and all those things. And so as soon as I got back, I started working on it because I just thought, well, I've got to strike while the iron's hot, as they say.
So you went this year and you wrote this year. Is that correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you moved from Santa Barbara.
Well, we had moved.
Oh, you moved
before I left.
2017.
Right.
A lot of transitions for you this year. Wow.
Yes. Yeah, it's been crazy time.
You were transitioning and from living in Santa Barbara for a long time to Milwaukee and feeling, I can only imagine, somewhat unsettled, but then you're traveling on this other side of the world in India and you're feeling not so unsettled. Was that, you were kind of grounding yourself on that trip? Did I take that away correctly?
Yeah, I think that's right. And because I had a lot of practice doing that throughout our move. You know, like the day we left Santa Barbara, I mean, it took us 5 days to drive out here to Wisconsin, and every day, multiple times every day on that road trip, I just kept praying. You know, like I would start to get anxiety, I would start to want to hyperventilate, and then I would just say, stop, turn inward, settle in. I mean, that was my practice through this entire move, through all the days that I really wanted to lose it. And I'm not saying I never lost it. Of course I did. But I think that practice throughout the time of the move and that whole transition really helped set that tone for when I went to India.
Wow. I read that and I was like, wow, that's really, that's amazing. Well, and it also sounded like so you went with 3 of your girlfriends and you wrote, and I don't really remember exactly where this was, but it was so special to me. You said, over the course of many years, you consciously intended to build friendships on the foundation of spiritual curiosity, soulful creativity, and divine feminine wisdom. Girl. I mean, what? These are some special women. And
yes,
the whole
just
time,
like you.
Oh, you're so sweet. But the whole time you're going through and you're kind of explaining your experience, you're giving us hints on what their experience is. And at the end, I was feeling so bad for for your one girlfriend who didn't make it to the Taj Mahal, did she?
No, she didn't. I know.
I mean that, and then the way she had to travel home alone and you were praying for her, I was like, oh my gosh.
I know. That was a rough goodbye at the airport.
It sounded like it. Wow. I mean, that's what I really loved about this book was you really are so consumed with like every experience, and your words are so eloquent in like creating this visual that you feel like you're there. It's really, really awesome. I loved it so much, Christine. It was very, very well written.
Thank you. That
and
means
it's
so
beautiful.
much.
It's so pretty. So,
well, that's India.
Yeah.
I just took pictures.
One of the parts that really kind of stuck out to me was the cremation area and that whole process of how they honor the dead. And you wrote, I don't know if this is where you wrote this, but life is made meaningful because of their death.
Right.
That just like struck such a chord in me. I mean, that's so I can't even put words around that. It's just, it's true. It's like everything gets meaningful after you experience that. And you don't want to waste any time doing anything not important or not soul fulfilling, you know?
Right. It's this like tightrope that we have to walk on where, you know, this fact of our demise, it could be like, I like to remind myself of it every day.
Wow.
Not to be fearful, but just as a reminder to be present and to be grateful because that's exactly where every living creature on this planet is going.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, think about that. Everything that's alive right now will someday be back in the earth. And so it's that all the more reason to feel grateful and to experience as much as we can right here and now, like to love as deeply as I can love, even knowing that could create even greater pain when there's a loss. Mm-hmm. But the bigger loss, as far as I'm concerned, is if I were to withhold something and then there's the loss and then I realize, oh my gosh, I didn't give it my all. Like I didn't give as much love as I could to this person, and now this person's gone and I'll never have that chance again. Right. So I'm going to give it my all.
Right.
Because that pain will be less than the pain of realizing I can't ever go back.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, the way you describe it and their whole ceremony of how they honor them and then, you know, even with you talk about the flowers, the marigolds and the cows around, and how the cows are around because they get to have the flowers afterwards. It's like,
right.
Like the cycle, you know, of life. It's just moving and wow. Yeah,
and then all around them, people are bathing and they're running their errands and they're walking around. I mean, it's all right there, right next to each other.
And it's amazing that you didn't feel like freaked out by it or anything, but that you felt that it was peaceful actually to see it like that. It was so normal, life and death at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I also thought it was really interesting that the women were not allowed to be there because their tears and their sadness might have that person, their spirit, not be able to go free. Is that what you meant by that?
Yep. That's the belief. And so you only see men there. And I think I have this right. The oldest son or the oldest male relative of the deceased shaves his head, you know, and wears white. So you see little tidbits of those beliefs and traditions and rites and rituals. You see it all right there. And no women anywhere, not in the main cremation area. They might have come to bring the body to that area, but they're not going to be there.
I just find that very interesting, you know, having had, you know, when you watch somebody who's sick and the choice between, you know, letting them go. So I don't know why that just really stuck with me. I mean, I'd definitely be one of them women. No, come on. Yeah. Like, right. No, she cannot be here. She has to leave. So no, that's really just, I love all the ceremony and all the color and like, it's just so beautiful how they honor all these different things. And you talk a lot about different ceremonies that you watch and you go to, which was great. Please share me the story. And I don't know, is it okay if we talk about the story about the woman that you met?
Sure. I'll probably start crying, but that's okay.
Well, I was crying when I was reading it, but are we giving too much away if we share that? Maybe give a little snippet of it.
I don't think it's sharing too much.
Okay.
Is it?
No, I mean, there's so many experiences, and I guess I'm just pulling the ones that really stuck, you know, really were strong for me, because I feel like I've had similar experiences to that, but not in a place like India where that must have been just crazy. We won't tell them the story of the tiger. They'll have to read that. but yeah, so tell us the story about how you were. What was that? Where was that ceremony that you were going to?
So this was in Varanasi. So Varanasi is like the heart of India. This is where people go for pilgrimage. It's right on the Ganges to bathe in the Ganges that's what most Hindus especially they want to do that at least once in their lifetime. So Varanasi is just full, and that's where the cremation areas are. It's just full of ceremony and rites and rituals and spirituality, and it's everywhere you go. And we were going to the Golden Temple, and we were there during a festival weekend. So our tour guide actually did not want to take us into the temple because he said we could get separated from each other and you would all get lost in about 5 seconds. So we're like, okay, that's cool.
Right. It's scary.
We believe you.
Because from the photos in the book, you're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just people everywhere and crowded. And then, a cow will walk by. It's crazy in a really narrow, alleyway.
Oh my gosh.
So he was able to find a place for us to sit near the entrance to the Golden Temple. So we basically just watched people coming in and out, which was great.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Loved it. And there was this woman who I noticed, and she's tall and slender, and she's a little bit older, wearing this beautiful sari. And I look at her, and I just can't stop staring at her. And then I realized, she reminds me of my grandma so, so much.
Wow.
And so I turned to our tour guide and say, could you call her over? And he calls her over, and I said, could you tell her she reminds me of my grandma? And, so he's speaking to her and translating, and we're holding hands, and I'm looking at her, and she's looking me in the eyes. And then she walks away, and it's like for a half a second, she gets a smile on her face. And I was like, there's my grandma. My grandma dropped in for a half a second. She dropped into this woman, she smiled, and then she was gone.
Wow. So your grandmother had passed away 12 years before that? Or?
Right. And I mean, the idea of my grandma coming to India, why
not?
It's not something I would think she would do. But all I can tell you is I know it was her.
Wow. And I don't know, I feel like I've had those experiences too, where it's just a flash and you're like, wait, what?
Right.
And you just feel that presence. And even if it wasn't, it made you reconnect with her and feel her love. And
yeah, it was more than just goosebumps. It was something it was like all my cells got goosebumps.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, it was, I'll never, ever forget that.
What were your friends thinking when all that happened?
Oh, well, as soon as I started crying, then they started crying. And then our tour guide, he just said, now it comes, or now it's coming. And he's like, this is Varanasi. This is what happens. He's like, of course this happened. Of course your grandma showed up. He wasn't even at all rattled or surprised, or he was like, yeah, this is what happens. Now it is coming. That he's like, he's like, if you're open to it, this will happen in Varanasi. If you're not, you're going to come here and you're going to look at things, and then you're going to go home and you're talk about the things you looked at. And I mean, I know it's not that black and white. You can't just classify people into two groups, but
right.
I get what he's saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a very spiritual place. Well, you said you felt God more there than anywhere. And
I think God lives in India. I really do.
In many shapes and forms.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
Wow. There's a sentence that you wrote, you felt your cells rearranging themselves.
Yes.
My God. I'm like, who writes this stuff? So good. It's just like my jaw just kind of dropped. I read that. I'm like, wow, that makes me want to go to India.
It's an amazing place.
Yeah. Except when you were talking about riding your bike in Delhi.
Barb and I were laughing about that so much. So Barb is the one I went to India with 4 years ago. And on that trip, our travel agent said, you can go on a bike ride in Delhi if you want. And we said, okay. And I talked to a friend of mine who had been to India. I said, what do you think of this idea? She said, you're crazy. Don't do it. And so Barb and I kept kind of going back and forth about it. But then we said, to heck with it. Let's do it. So we do the bike ride. We finished the bike ride and we're like, that was the best thing ever in the whole world. Like we were so giddy and excited and just like so energized about it. So when we went back 4 years later with Jeanette and Colleen, we're like, we have to do the bike ride. So we start on the bike ride and right away I'm like, I'm insane. Like, why did I decide to do this a second time? And I think we were laughing about it because in 2014, we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. So we just showed up and we did it. And when we finished, we were like, holy crap, we just did that. And it was awesome. But this time we actually knew what we were getting into. It didn't really hit us until we started. And then Barb did better than I do. But I was like, I was so nerve-wracked and anxious. And I think it was also because there were more of us and it was harder to keep the four of us together. And there were these two other guys in our group who just kept doing things that they were not supposed to be doing. And that was stressing me out. And so at the end of it, I still felt great. I'm still glad I did it. I don't regret doing it, but I also, after it, thought, I am insane. I was insane to do that twice.
I don't even know how you did that with navigating the streets. I mean, that just sounds so terrifying to me.
It's crazy.
And if you were like one of the most calm people I've ever met, if you were feeling stressed out, oh geez, I don't know.
But that was part of it, you know?
Yeah, like that's part of the experience of traveling, right? Being in another country.
Yeah.
It is interesting how when you go back, that's why when Bill and I went to Italy a couple of years ago, it was so incredible. I just don't think you could ever recreate that experience. I'm going to have to go somewhere else in Italy because it's like you said, it's going to be the same but completely different experiences. And if you start to try to compare, it's just not going to go well. I think you even say that at the beginning of the book.
Yep.
Yeah, that's very enlightening for sure. Oh my gosh. Then there was something else that you talked about that I also really. Well, I mean, literally, like I could talk about every single page, but when it was talking about the music, where's my notes on that? You said of all the different forms of creative expression, music has the greatest power. And I thought that's really powerful to say that because it's, it's an art form and it's making you feel something. So tell me about that experience.
So there were a couple of different experiences we had with music. And so I'll just stick with the Qawwali. So Qawwali, it's Quawwali. And it's this Sufi spiritual music or is it Sikh? I might be getting those two mixed up. So forgive me, anyone who's listening who knows I'm wrong.
Well, it wouldn't be me, so.
But it's this, how can I explain it? There's this drum, it's called a tabla, and then there's a harmonium, which is kind of like an organ, and it's very improvisational. And there's someone singing, and it's almost like singing / chanting. And they're telling a story. And of course, I don't understand the language, but there's just something about sitting in a room, like with all of these people around you, and you're in this amazing courtyard, or in one case, we were in this big temple, and just dropping in. And even not knowing what they're saying, just knowing and feeling like this is about God. This is about our souls. This is about trying to raise us to our highest selves. And we had the opportunity to go to these like laser light shows. which also, like, I think that's kind of the new thing now for tourists over there, because that we weren't offered those in 2014. So I think this is maybe kind of a new development, and we refused all of those because we're like, no, we want to go where the locals go. We want to be with people who are not tourists. And so we were able to have more experiences listening to live music that for me felt more genuine and therefore more moving.
Well, especially, not even understanding the language, but you could feel that presence and feel that connected. That's really a beautiful experience to have, especially when you're traveling.
Yep.
So it's so good. So you met your friend there. I thought that was really interesting. I'm like, oh my gosh, this was quite a trip. So this is a friend that you've known via the internet, and then you have connected with her. And so why don't you share that with us?
So this is a woman named Vinita, and Vineeta. She is an artist and has a really beautiful website called Art and Light, like art, the letter N, and then light. And somehow we found each other online. And
well, with that name, I can only imagine why you would have found each other.
Right. I think she found me somewhere and reached out to me, and I had written, on my blog and stuff like that, I had written over the years of wanting to go to India. And so she reached out and we connected, and then I asked her to contribute to one of my books, and she came out for the book launch. It was the first time she came to the States.
That's crazy.
Yeah, which was amazing.
Wow.
Just the most amazing thing. And she came to stay with me, I think, for a week or so. And then she got to go visit a family member in Houston. And so when Barb and I made plans to go out there, of course, and we had stayed in touch since then. And so she came up to Jaipur and met Barb and I in 2004 with another friend of hers. So then we met her friend Nisha. And so then, of course, we're going back to Jaipur. So they flew up again, and then all six of us got to hang out.
It sounded amazing. It sounded like such a nice visit. And then to see what her art was inspired by was really beautiful too.
Right. She has like a home accessories line. So she has her artwork on mugs and coasters and trays and little boxes, and they're so beautiful and colorful. And a lot of them are inspired by these four, they call them gates, but they're like big doorways, big arched doorways at the Jaipur City Palace. And they're so beautiful. And so to stand in the middle of that courtyard and see all these four gates and see, oh my gosh, that's exactly where Vinita's inspiration comes from. Like, now I see it. I'm looking at it. You can see other artists' inspirations in other things. I see that all the time. But this was different because it was so precise. And to see how this one place, she just posted this week, literally, she's up there again, taking pictures of City Palace because she loves it so much. And of course she loves it so much. It's amazing. So to be inspired so much to such a degree by this one place on the map, this very precise part of the map, I think is really fascinating and really beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. And it would have been overwhelming actually on a visual level to be there, just the textiles alone and all, so many things are made in India. It sounds, and all the palaces and all the different tiles and just different things that are all around. Wow.
Yeah, it can be hard to take it all in.
Yeah, it'd be a lifetime of inspiration.
Definitely.
A lot to decompress from. Well, I thought the book was amazing. And just when you think it's not quite done, you're kind of wrapping up, there's a whole nother story that people are going to have to get this book. And it's just such a joyful enlightened experience to read it. And your artwork is so pretty, and I love everything about it. It's just it's just perfect.
Thank you.
It's a perfect gift too. So the book is amazing. When do you think that it will be published and available? Are you doing pre-sales, and how can people go about purchasing this gorgeous book?
I am wrapping up the book right now and getting ready to send it into the publishing pipeline, and I'll be opening up pre-orders on the 15th, and I believe this podcast is airing on the 17th. So
perfect.
You can go to my website, christinemasonmiller.com, and put in a pre-order, and you'll get some nice goodies with your pre-order.
Yay.
And I don't on this day exactly know that when they're going to ship out, because this is a new platform for me, so I'm not quite certain of their turnaround time, but at the very latest, just after Thanksgiving.
Okay, perfect.
That's what I'm thinking.
All the links for that will be on the blog post on my website, MariRobesonHome.com, and also on this YouTube video. All the links for how you can purchase this gorgeous book will be there too. And I don't want to wrap it up without my typical questions that I have to ask. So I want to know, what were some words of advice that you received when you were starting out that on your creative journey that was the best advice that you ever received?
The best advice I received is not necessarily just about creativity, but it's something that one of my card reps, so I had this card line called Swirly, and I had sales reps all over the country. And I was particularly close to one of them who lived in the Bay Area, and she was a little older than me, I'd say maybe 20 years older than me. And we were talking about whatever. And at one point we were talking about balance, like trying to find balance in your life. And she said, by the way, you never get there, so don't even try. And that sounds like she was being snarky, but she wasn't. She was just very matter of fact about it. Like, you can let that go. And that stayed with me. And I just remember feeling kind of relieved. Like, oh, good. I don't have to have all the pieces of the pie in perfect balance. Like, they're gonna move, and one will be bigger and one will be smaller. And then, it was really helpful to me in every area of my life, including my work and my creativity.
It's such good advice, because you think everybody else is walking around perfectly balanced.
Yeah,
and we're all adjusting our stance all the time.
Yep.
That's
and who decided that had to be the goal? Who decided that that's the most ideal way? If that's your most ideal way to live your life, then rock on. It's not realistic for me. And so it was just nice to hear when I was all of 27 years old, like, oh, I don't have to hold on to that. Especially
as an entrepreneur. So you've always got one, there's multiple things always happening. It's not like you're just doing this one thing. So, sometimes you're working like crazy, and then sometimes there's a little breather. It's just, it never seems to be balanced.
Right.
I have yet to find that. So I like that advice too. That's a good one. And what would be your advice to your younger self, or someone just kind of starting out there and dipping their toe in the creative world?
First of all, trust your intuition. That's huge. And also get clear and specific on what your values are with each project, with your work overall, with your life. I've literally made a list of the core values that I want to be reflected in all of my biggest creative endeavors. And they're like compass points, and they give me parameters that sound like they might be restrictive, but to me, that's where the greatest freedom lies. Because it's like, oh, if I do this thing, it's not going to reflect this core value, so I can let that go. And I need to push it back a little bit more in this direction. So I think it's very important to create that foundation for yourself and for whatever work you're putting out on the world, or even making your bed.
It's true. That is very, very valuable information because Tug, who another artist that I had interviewed, talking about having a point of view about an intention behind every piece of artwork that you're creating for him.
Right.
He's an illustrator, and because they can teach so many things. It can make you think about so many things, and it's sometimes people don't take that time to do that first step, but it becomes so like the beginning of this conversation, you're talking about you've been many different things, but you've always had that same truth, and that this is what you're all about. And that's why, for me, watching you do all these different things always went, oh, that goes together. That works with that. Because your place always came from that being clear and specific and knowing what your core values are. That's wonderful. I love that. Yay. Well,
Yay.
Thank you so much, Christine. This has just been so delightful. And I always just cherish every minute that I get with you. And thank you for creating some space and time to share your beautiful book with us. And it's going to be a great holiday gift. So
thank you. Thank you so much for sitting down and reading it.
Oh, it was such a treat. It was so good. It was so good. Okay, signing off. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you like this podcast and you'd like to support it even more, you can join me over on patreon.com/Mari Robeson and become a patron of mine. If you're a patron of mine, you'll receive bonus episodes every month, only for patrons. You'll also receive 20% off all the merchandise in my online shop, marirobeson.bigcartel, and you will be receiving free printables every month that will be of my artwork, and they're some really fun things. You can follow along on Instagram and you can see what I'm creating just for my patrons. I would deeply appreciate it. It would help me keep the lights on, and it would help me pay all the fees that it takes to put together a podcast like this so that I can keep supporting all the artists, keep bringing you great information, keep paying it forward to the next generation of artists. It's just a wonderful thing, and I would really deeply appreciate your support.